Hi everybody, my name is Greg Knight, and I have been a host of Popping Collars for over 10 years now. During that time, I've had the privilege to talk with several people from the entertainment, academic, and religious worlds through our spinoff pod, Under the Stole. Every now and then, I have a guest on to talk about their new movie, documentary, book, or whatever other project. It's a great opportunity to dive deeper into the stories of some really talented artists and thinkers while learning more about what drives the creative spirit. So keep things under the stole with me and my guests right here on the Popping Collars feed. Hey, I'm Greg Knight.
Hey, Ryan Parker.
And this is PC Pilgrims, a Popping Collars side pod where Ryan and I we're actually going to do this. We're going to walk around the world, literally.
In some combination. I may only take 1 mile. We're going to be walking on land that's all around the world.
Ryan, we're living in the age of ambition, which is to say we have just seen human beings travel further away from this planet than ever in the history of the world.
In the history of the species, what does that do to you? I mean, it fires me up. I am so into this.
I just think it's crazy cool.
I think it's the coolest thing in my lifetime. I mean, just the idea that we're doing, that we as a species are doing this. See, I think this is relevant to what we're doing.
Yeah.
Did you see the astronaut's comment today about, he was invoking some theological language, which, that's fine, whatever. Mm-hmm. Give people their worldview. But he was like, you all are looking at us and hearing from us from the furthest reaches of, the human experience. We're the furthest away. And you think that this is amazing, and you're looking at us and you think that we're amazing. But we're all looking back at you from this furthest distance. And you are on a spaceship too, in this vast expanse, and you look pretty amazing. But to hear that kind of aspirational reflection from somebody who is as far away from the only livable planet that we know,
right?
That's so freaking awesome.
Yeah. It's incredible,
which is why I think this topic that you really are leading the charge on, Greg, is so vital. No, I'm being serious. It is reminding us of what he is seeing, is that we're all part of this one community.
Okay, here's the thing, Ryan. We've been doing this PC Pilgrims podcast for a year and a half, meandering our way through, right? We had kind of a general idea of what it is that we wanted to do. We scaled back. We were like, you know what? Let's just get the Camino de Santiago in the books. If we can get that trip done and edited together into a video series, a podcast series, maybe some kind of written material like a workbook or a curriculum or something like that, then hey, we've done it. But recently, and when I say recently, I mean within the last month, I was exposed to a video about hikes around the world, and it made me think, no, we've been thinking way too small with this project. The goal is to actually go bigger and strengthen the vision, and I think the scope, and therefore I think the project going forward.
Hey, shoot for the moon.
So PC Pilgrims is now operating under the assumption that we will do 10 pilgrimage journeys on 6 continents on the planet Earth, to tell one human story of how we're all connected on this globe. That's our scope. Ryan, the floor is yours.
Everybody listening to this, that's a great pitch. Start cutting some checks. I am shameless. Listen, I see projects that get funded that have no business getting funded. This is a noble project. I'm not saying this because I'm part of it. I could not participate in any of the work that's going to be done. And let me tell you, pilgrimages are work. This is not a vacation project. This is a lot of work. The way you have cast this vision, you and I are riffing off notes here that people can't see, but at some point they will be able to. but I think you have cast an amazing vision for expanding the idea, and I think it's just gonna be a gift to people that either can participate with, or alongside, or take advantage of the many resources that something like this can put out. Be it the podcast, video essays, a travel journal, which we're going to talk about some of that stuff. But I work in film, I work in stories, and 10 journeys, 6 continents, one story. Like it's so good. So
So
I'm
let's
not trying to pat ourselves on the back. I'm trying to pat you on the back.
so let's talk about the why. Why are we doing this? And we've been unpacking this over the last year and a half. There is something going on when it comes to religious pilgrimage. I
Right. Yeah.
recently sent you an article from the Financial Times, that great theological resource known as
That's
the
right.
Financial
That's
Times,
right.
which pointed out, and I always go back to, boy, the Camino has really exploded since, the turn of the millennium. But they made a great point in that article of saying, in 1984, there were only 484 people that walked the Camino de Santiago. And now 484 people is about an average day.
That's what I was going to say. It feels like that's exactly what I was going to guess.
I mean, that's incredible, right? To
Yeah.
go from 484 40 years ago to 500,000 and growing this
No
year.
signs of stopping.
And the Camino, it should be pointed out, again, another article that I sent you, has grown this year from last year. 22% more pilgrims have received a Compostela this year. And last year was a record breaking year by far.
We've spent a lot of time in these episodes talking with experts and pilgrims who have been multiple times over decades about the why of that.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think, looking at some of our notes here, simultaneously, while pilgrimage is skyrocketing, what else is happening, Greg, that you think might explain why some people would want to take on this journey?
Well, that's a great point, right? Because I think the reason, the why of this project, I think is starting to become clearer and clearer to me, in the sense that we are actually living in a very key time in human history that probably needs to be documented. And pilgrimage is a part of that story. So the growth in pilgrims also coincides with the growth of the digital media age. So we're talking about things like social media. We're talking about things like easy access to technological devices in our pockets. And it can't be understated the growing impact that artificial intelligence is having on what we see as real and what we see as unreal in the world
100%.
around us.
100%. I saw a film. You and I were discussing this before we started recording this episode. One of the films that I forgot to tell you about, we were talking about South by, is a film that's hopefully coming up soon for most of you viewers who, weren't able to attend the festival. It's called Your Attention Please, and if you've seen a film called The Social Dilemma, it retreads a lot of that, but it also introduces some new ideas and some new concerns, largely around AI. But it's charting this crisis that is plaguing our species, that is plaguing humanity, not just our country. Of feelings of alienation and depression and mis and disinformation, the rise of chatbots, and the problematic relationships that teenagers are having with those. I mean, the film ended, Greg, with an account of a teenager killing himself because the chatbot suggested
Mm.
that he should. So all of these things, I think you're exactly right. And there's an alarm. There's another film that's just recently come out that you can rent online now called the AI doc. How I Became an Apocalyptic Optimist. That is, people are saying, is quite possibly one of the most urgent documentaries ever made about where we are vis-a-vis AI right now in the near future. It's no wonder that a real experience like a pilgrimage is so
Mhm.
appealing to so many people who are feeling burdened by these new technologies and networks.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, and it also speaks to why countries would want to get in on the pilgrimage market. So the other key point in that Financial Times article that I wrote you is that yes, pilgrimage is increasing, but with that comes dollars that are coming into these countries. And there's a bit of, we've talked a lot about this. There's a bit of a catch 22 when it comes to that, right? Because over tourism can start to become a problem in and of itself. Yes, you want the tourism dollars, but you also want to keep the identity of what it is that's special, why it is that people came to your country in the first place. And I think that what we're seeing is other countries are seeing, wait a second, there's something to be gained here by offering these trails. How can we do that in our authentic way? In our countries, have people come to us. And so I think that what you're seeing is it's that yes, there is this call towards real connection, real human connection, real connection to the earth underneath your feet, but it is also a possible lucrative opportunity for the
Well,
countries that are doing this.
well, religion and spirituality have never ever been divorced from economics. And speaking of religion, another moment we find ourselves in is the decline, at least in the West, the decline of traditional religious practice, attendance, or affiliation. But yet, we see these experiences, excuse me, that are profoundly religious in origin and in their nature, being kind of co-opted, or for some people it may be what they're looking for that they're not getting out of their religious traditions, right?
Mm-hmm.
And people are so skeptical of religion now, and rightfully so. When you start to articulate these trends, if you will, it feels like a perfect storm for a project like this. It really,
Yeah.
really does. And I don't know that it would have pre-COVID, quite frankly, Greg. I don't know, 15 years ago. Does it work? Yeah.
One of the stats that I put in our pitch for this project is that three quarters of the people that walk the Appalachian Trail say that the most important aspect of their journey was community connection.
I believe that one. Knowing the people that I know that have walked it, I 100% believe that.
Not being in nature, not like personal achievement, like all the things that you would think about when it comes to the Appalachian Trail. No, it's community connection
It's
that
amazing.
they come away with. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, we've exhaustively, I think, talked about why this is
Hmm.
important. We've
Yeah.
spent really a year and a half talking about why this is important. So now let's get to the what, the scope of this. And I have to admit that some of this came from just research into hiking trails, pilgrimage trails, just looking at routes around the world. And then as I started to research these things, all of a sudden I started to see a common pattern start to develop among them. And that's when I started reaching out to you and saying, wait a second, I think this is the project. So, what are we talking about when we say 10 journeys, six continents, one story? 10 journeys, starting with the Camino de Santiago in Spain.
The Camino de Santiago. The most popular route covers about 500 miles through Spain. The Camino often winds through the Spanish countryside, passing through small towns and villages, which means frequent cafes, coffee, wine stops, and nights in hotels and hostels.
The rolling hills are beautiful in the center of Spain. You see lots of vineyards. It's a very idyllic kind of Europe.
It was really, really busy. It's gotten to the point where there are too many hikers for some of the towns.
The Camino is really known for its charm and almost luxurious, for lack of a better word, hiking experience. But to me, what really stands out the most about the Camino is history, that millions of people have done this for hundreds of years.
It's much more about the socializing. It's much more about walking through Spain, a beautiful old city with so much culture and heritage.
Easy one, right?
Iconic. Yeah.
Easy one. It's baby's first pilgrimage.
I love that.
I love too that like we're making light of a 500-mile journey across different environments as if it's nothing, as if like, oh yeah, anybody can do that.
Well, there's precious few people I know in my life or have encountered that have done the Camino and said that they would never do it again. And for some reason and you tell people that you've done, they're like, oh my God, that sounds amazing, like so difficult, 500 miles. I'm like, you know what? You just get up every day and one foot in front of the other.
Yeah,
You meet
exactly.
amazing people. Yeah, that's going to be true of a lot of the places that you're going to talk about. But It is I think one of the things that may set it apart from a lot of these that you are sharing here with us that momentarily, I mean, the infrastructure is just so established,
It's designed to make it as easy as possible
Yeah.
for you to walk
Yeah.
this trail.
Okay.
Yeah. Two other European journeys stood out to me. One is a twofer, but basically like a UK pilgrimage. The first is St. Cuthbert's Way in Scotland that walks to Lindisfarne, which is a monastery on Holy Island. It's a very removed pilgrimage in northern Scotland. And then the other is the one that probably the first pilgrimage that people know because they read this book in high school is the Canterbury Tales, right? It's the trail from London to Canterbury and reading about the journey of medieval pilgrims.
Yep.
And now you're just doing that again in the modern day.
A pathway along which so much of English identity converges. It's the way of Thomas Becket, the martyr saint who stood up to a king and inspired Christendom. It's a path which drew countless pilgrims in ages past and is reviving in our own times.
So this idea of St. Cuthbert's Way, the Pilgrim's Way in the UK, the ancient roots of modern spirituality. And then finally, the last European trip is in Norway. Norway, famously a country that is post-Christianity, really post-religion. This is a culture that does not, it's funny because we're recording this the day after Easter. And I was just thinking about how many appeals are made to religion civically, socially, all of that stuff in this country. And here, you've got Norway, which is like, I think we've kind of evolved from that.
Guys, we're past that.
Right?
But look at their mythology.
But their mythology.
But look at the mythology and look at the love of nature.
It begins in Oslo footpath. It's 643 kilometres long and is one of the pilgrims' trails to Nidaros Cathedral in Trondheim. I had 2 weeks holiday off work, so I would just have enough time to do it. Once I'd finished working, I packed my stuff together, took the bus to Oslo and started walking. After camping outside of the city that evening, I got into the walking routine. When I got tired, I slept. When I got hungry, I ate. And so, I just walked.
Absolutely.
And so, what's called the Gunbrandsleden, the St. Olav's Way.
Yeah.
So the European trails all sort of have this idea of how do we live an ancient faith in a modern world, right?
Mm-hmm. That's good. Yeah, absolutely. I think the next few may surprise some people, like that. Even people familiar with pilgrimage. I love the fact that you've curated these walks from places that people might not automatically think of for a topic.
Yeah,
like
that's a great point, because sometimes you don't think of some of these as pilgrim trails, but I think that they are.
I think absolutely.
So for our Asian journeys, we have 3 that basically encompass the various aspects of Asian religion and philosophy, right? Because Asia is a giant continent with an enormous set of beliefs that are older than anything that exists on this planet. So to start off, kind of an easy one, the Shikoku Henro in Japan.
The Shikoku 88 Temple Pilgrimage. This is a 750-mile pilgrimage circumnavigating the island of Shikoku. Because this is an island, you have beach walking and fishing villages.
There is a lot of coastline, and it's beautiful coastline.
But also rice terraces and bamboo forests, with monkeys and, of course, temples. The cultural significance is the route connects 88 temples tied to the monk who founded Shingon Buddhism in the 8th century.
So from the ancient time, Japanese people did pilgrimage hiking. Mountain is part of our life, and also, the place to enjoy or place to practice religion.
This is similar to the Camino because of its historical significance in its region and for being more of a pilgrimage with that hostel and hotel experience.
I think what makes it special is that it's a very interesting way to see Japan, just to really enjoy and connect with the people there.
A little island with 88 temples, 88 million venomous snakes.
Well, I'm out on this one. You're going to have to... Yeah, I wish you wouldn't have said that. Well, thank you for the heads up, but I'm not going.
And a bunch of Western pilgrims that have started showing up at their door, ready to walk a loop around the island.
Yeah.
So the Shikoku Henro in Japan. Then this idea of where does the religious impulse come from, right? And this climb to enlightenment that happens. So the Annapurna Circuit.
The Annapurna Circuit and the Great Himalayan Trail, a roughly 100 to 140 mile loop that really hits the highlights. Huge snow-capped peaks and lush river valleys in the day, and hot meals and sleeping in tea houses at night. This has very high elevation with a pass over 17,000 feet and edges on the Tibetan Plateau. It is well marked and can be crowded.
Is this mix between the highest summits in the world, culture, spirituality? You feel like it's a travel through time.
So not Everest Base Camp, but the circuit that goes around the base of Annapurna Mountain, which is Mount Everest's neighbor, and encountering the highest places in the world. There's a reason why ancient religions put their pantheons on top of mountains.
Yeah.
It's because they're awe-inspiring.
Yeah, exactly.
And then finally, wrapping up the Asian...
This one's going to be tough.
Travel. It's going to be tough right now. It'll ease up, though. I'm sure by the time we get to it.
Your mouth to the spirit's ears.
There was a recently opened pilgrimage on the western border of Jordan. It's called the Jordan Trail.
The Jordan Trail, a roughly 400-mile route that runs the entire length of Jordan. The JT kind of has it all, in my opinion. Well-established backcountry trails through northern forests, canyons, sandstone plateaus, and long stretches of open desert. But perhaps even more fascinating is the trail follows trade routes and footpaths believed to have been walked by Moses, Jesus, and Mohammed.
I got to walk through these places that were significant, that are described in the Bible.
Including Roman ruins, villages, the lowest point on earth, the Dead Sea, and eventually the UNESCO World Heritage Site, Petra. There are towns and well-marked trails in the north and longer stretches and cairns in the south.
Because we were walking amongst the Bedouin nomads, there was one particular place where we saw a trail sign inside one of the tents because it was a flat spot, and that's where they were herding their goats and sheep.
It's a newly mapped trail from the year 2018. What sets this pilgrimage apart is that it walks in the footsteps of 3 of the Abrahamic faiths. It crosses over with journeys that we know Jesus took, crosses over with profound experiences from the Prophet Muhammad, and it ends at the banks of the Red Sea. So, the Jordan Trail, it's an old caravan route. It's a trade route that just basically became a pilgrimage.
Again, economics and spirituality and religion. Would people think of Africa and Australia when they think of pilgrimage, Greg?
I doubt it, because here we're talking about colonized territory, right?
Yeah, so, and I have questions about these two that you've again, not. I think the idea to be on all the continents is great. These are raising real ethical questions in ways that I think previous routes that you've just talked about don't. So I wonder if you could speak to that.
So these are not pilgrimage trails. These are like hiking trails that people from around the world try. But I think that they have spiritual depth. For Africa, we're talking about the Drakensberg Grand Traverse.
Landscape. The Drakensberg Grand Traverse, which is about 140 miles long and runs through South Africa's highest mountain range. The DGT is more of a suggested route across 6 peaks, including the highest point in South Africa.
All the time you're hiking between 3,000 to 3,500 meters.
High plateaus with deep-cut valleys and grasslands, and a carved-up landscape quite literally at the end of the continent.
You just have these incredible views and sunrises and very, very spectacular scenery, like extreme rock formations, amazing spires.
But perhaps more interesting is it runs through another UNESCO World Heritage Site with thousands of ancient paintings from the Sand People, and borders the landlocked country of Lesotho with nomadic locals.
They're usually singular shepherds out tending either sheep, goats, horses, or cattle. And they have a very unique dress style, very similar to almost the Mongolian horsemen.
This is the mountainous trail that borders the territory of the Bosotho tribe. Now, those of you who know South African geography, you know that basically South Africa is the lower portion of the African continent, but there's a little circular area that's sort of like stamped out in the northeast corner of the country. That's because that's actually not South Africa. That territory belongs to the Basotho tribe. The cool thing about the Grand Traverse is that it basically walks the edge of that land, going between South Africa and the Basotho tribe's land, and you encounter this tribe as you're walking the trail.
It is recognized as one of the world's toughest hikes. Featuring
is.
a more than 10,000 meter elevation gain, mostly above 3,000 meter altitude with no marked trails, no facilities. It is a leave no trace camping self-guided hike.
Yep.
Greg, what are you getting us into? We're not going to, what pilgrims are we going to encounter to have conversations with? It sounds like these are just going to be adventure thrill seekers on the path. Not to say that there's not a spiritual component to that, but this is a little exceptional cardio and strength for 20 plus kilometer days with heavy packs. Greg, what are we doing? Proficiency with GPS and physical maps. When is the last time we've looked at a physical map together? Dear listener, never is the answer to that question.
But Ryan, this is pilgrimage number 7. We're going to be experts by the time we
Okay. All right. Okay. I take that.
Actually, I have seen video of this trail. It's not as bad as you would think.
All right.
So yes, the entire Grand Traverse that's daunting.
Yeah.
What we're talking about is a portion
experience
of the Drakensberg Grand Traverse. Yeah. And yes, there are chain ladders tacked into the side of mountains that you have to climb up, but there are lots of people.
I'm just wondering, as I sip a beer after work on a Monday afternoon, I'm mindful of the pilgrimage practice of having a beer after you get off the trail on the Camino. What's the beer situation on the Drakensberg Traverse?
Well, you may have to brew your own. You know?
Yeah. All right. Well, take us to Australia, because I'm really intrigued by this. Except for the home of the most venomous serpents in the world.
Well, just keep in mind, Australia, as soon as you set foot on the continent, the whole continent is trying to kill you.
It's trying to kill you.
So you just have to keep you have to keep your head on a swivel.
Yeah, you and I have a former classmate of ours who is bound for Australia soon. So hopefully he makes it back.
So in Australia, in Western Australia, they have the Bibbulmun Track.
The Bibbulmun Track, running over 600 miles through the Darling Range. The Bib is famous for coastal beaches and tall trees.
And you'll just be climbing sand dunes, but then you also get to swim in the ocean every day.
The Bib forests are actually some of the tallest trees on the planet, the Jarrah and Kari.
You walk through like some of the most incredible and special forests. They just tower over you.
Wildlife includes some of Australia's most famous emus and kangaroos. But keep an eye out for snake symbols because the tiger snake and dugite are venomous.
What I can tell you about the Bibbulmun Track from research is that if there is a Garden of Eden on the planet Earth, this may be it. It's got these amazing forests with trees that seem to go all the way up to heaven. It's got tracks that run beside the coast of Australia, the Australian coast, right? Just these gorgeous sort of rugged views of the Pacific Ocean. It does have venomous serpents all over all over the place. As a matter of fact, the trail sign is the picture of a snake. The branding for the Bibbulmun Track is the snake brand. The more research I put into it, the more I was like, wait a second here. This is what we're talking about when we're talking about people's connection to naturalism and this idea of being a passenger on the planet Earth along with other creatures that live here.
Yeah.
Which I think is amazing.
I'm for that. Yes. Yeah.
So let's wrap things up with a trip back to the Americas.
Yeah.
So South America, strangely enough, for countries that have such a rich Catholic history, have very few pilgrimage trails. But what South America does have is this region of the world in southern Chile and southern Argentina where people not only live but thrive. And you just have to ask yourself, how do human beings figure out how to live in a place where they shouldn't be able to live? And that is encountered,
which is like
Patagonia Trail,
the Greater Patagonia Trail. This is a tough one to wrangle because it's more of a piece your own adventure together from these different trail sections and can potentially incorporate some pack rafting. But the most popular route runs for about 2,000 miles.
It's basically from like Santiago de Chile all the way down to the southern tip.
This trail takes you through quite literally the southern spine of the Andes. Now, two things really stand out to me on the GPT. The first, the sheer range of landscapes. Snowy mountains, volcanoes, hanging glaciers.
It was just like walking on a space planet. It was desert and there were just giant boulders just spread around. And then we get to lush greenery and like these crystal clear, crystal blue lakes.
The route passes through several national parks, but the second is how untouched and pristine it is.
I think my favorite part is just how remote it was.
You pass through indigenous Pehuenche territory, mountain farmers, and arrieros. I know I'm pronouncing these wrong, which are considered to be Chilean cowboys.
These people were so peaceful. They didn't have phones, just living a very quiet life.
I had I'm looking out my front window, my across the street neighbor's house, who they walked to Patagonia Trail last year.
Oh.
And the pictures are, I mean, as you can imagine, just stunning. And they talked about what a transformative experience it was.
Mm-hmm.
And they went with a group of people who, and I'm not going to guess their personal story. We could potentially talk to them on the podcast. But yeah, I mean, very much a profoundly spiritual experience being on that journey.
The other thing that the Patagonia Trail reminds you of, because you're walking a trail that's basically surrounded by glaciers.
Mm-hmm.
And what that reminds me of and what it evokes in my mind is this idea of God moving over the waters. It's this deeply held connection of Judaism and Christianity to the link between God and water. And that those two things are profoundly integrated into each other.
Well, one of the things that I like about a couple of these pilgrimages that you're highlighting for us, which is, the Australian pilgrimage, I'm going to call it that, trail, Patagonia. One of the things that I'm increasingly mindful of is like deep time. And, I watched recently the dinosaur series on Netflix narrated by Morgan Freeman. Take a shot every time he says dinosaur and you may not live, but it's really, it's so compelling to think about when you talk about glaciers and the movement of glaciers. It just the way time has worked on our planet, and we're such if you can see me, it's like a micro, like it's not even a pinhead on that span, in that history. And so that perspective, man, is everything. It's not just, you're on a rock floating. It's like you hadn't been here a nanosecond. On this.
Oh yeah, and the hubris of human beings, right?
Oh my god!
So man, we're the greatest thing this planet has ever seen.
Stop it! Yeah. So I like how you put that, like life finding a way, and to borrow Jurassic Park, but again, not a pilgrimage, but this is making a case for what can walking in a space that is not your community do for you, because that's what pilgrimage in some way has always been. Okay, now we get to the last. What in God's name could be a pilgrimage in the U.S.?
When I think of the rich, religious history of America, I think of the state of California. I mean,
like most people, sure.
All jokes aside, this is one that we actually talked about and this is one that we're going to have a guest come on the show in a couple of months. This when Sandy's going to be with us. But Sandy actually wrote the guidebook for this trail, which is the California Missions Trail.
The western coast of North America was inhabited by many different Native American tribes. And in the 16th through 18th century, Spanish explorers came in contact with them as they explored off the coast. They called the region New Spain. And in order to consolidate control, they brought soldiers and priests. And the priests began to establish missions in order to convert the natives to Christianity and spread Western culture and Spanish control. The missions dotted the coastal areas of what we now call California. The native paths that connect the missions came to be called El Camino Real.
So there are 21 Spanish missions that exist in southern to northern California.
Up and down
California. Up to
California.
Sonoma.
Up and down, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So from San Diego to Sonoma, there are 21 missions. We know a lot of these, right? San Luis Obispo.
San Juan Capistrano.
There's one out in Carmel.
Beautiful places.
Could you imagine like the luxury of staying at a mission in Carmel?
Can we afford it?
So recently, because people have been drawn to pilgrimage, there has been an attempt by pilgrims who have done European trails who have come back to America to try to get an American pilgrimage system built up around the California missions.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a fairly new experience. I think the way that most people experience the California missions is by driving from mission to mission, right? Taking like bus tours and stuff like that. I know it's definitely a sought after biking, like cycling trail.
Yeah.
A lot of cyclers that do this. It's not something that you would necessarily associate with a walking trail. There are two things that I was looking at when it comes to this pilgrimage. One, does the United States of America have the will and the generosity to create a pilgrimage trail? Maybe. I don't know. It seems like a tall order for Americans right now. But second, boy, what a rich tapestry of the American story. You're talking about Roman Catholic missions that are built on indigenous land in a country that's increasingly either Protestant or non-religious. This is sort of the American soup, right? The American gumbo kind of played out on a pilgrim trail.
Yeah. We joke about the dangers or threats of walking in, a desert or Australia. It's like, are we walking up the 5? What are we doing? Where are we going in California? It'll be exciting to see. You're making strong case here. It's not just the idea of the traditional idea of pilgrimage, but what is it about being back in nature, connecting with nature, connecting with fellow walkers, let's just say, if we don't want to call them pilgrims, if you're on the Patagonia Trail, what type of conversations can be had, what type of vulnerabilities are on display when you're on a trail like that with someone, the opportunities for conversation, connection. That's a huge motivating factor behind all of this, whether it's a traditional pilgrimage or something newer, so to speak. Mm-hmm. And I think the hope, and I'm kind of jumping in, looking at our notes here, the hope here is that we create resources for people. But the hope is that through, no matter where it is, what continent, what trail, is that there are conversations that are going to be had, there are experiences, us creating videos or continuing this podcast series, creating a travel resource guide. But the hope is that there's a collection of stories. It's not just that, you or I or a combination of us or other guests along the way are going to just be walking for the sake of walking. I mean, there's a real hope here that there are conversations that will be had along the way that we can't even imagine the vistas of what those would be like, but knowing that based on our past experiences that they're going to be wonderful and like capturing those in some way to share with whoever comes across the podcast or the YouTube videos or book or whatever comes out of this. And it's almost like, I love how you like talked about each journey and you've been so intentional about what you've included in this proposal and this big project, if you will. But beyond that, it's kind of hard to say. It's like, we're going to go out there and we have a hunch that sharing that experience can be both informative, inspirational, and aspirational for people. But it's really, really hard to say like what is on the other side of those experiences, right? Which is part of the reason people have done it throughout history is you don't know until you get out there and set one foot in front of the other.
Right.
It's like we're like Bagginses, you know.
That's right. Hey, that Tolkien guy may have been onto something. I think that what we're likely going to learn in this project, the assumption of our project, is that we're going to actually find a common story on all these far reaches, these far-flung reaches of the world. We're actually going to find a story that unites all of humanity.
I think you're 100% right. And it's going to look and feel and sound and taste and smell different, but there's a thread, man. There's a thread. And we need to grab onto that now more than ever.
So what are we looking at? We're looking to inform people about what is happening on these journeys and why and how people are making sense of it. And we're looking to inspire people. We're looking to show people that there's actually more that unites us than divides us. And while the dividing voices may be the loudest voices, the uniting voices are actually who we are.
That's the great thing about these trips. You're just inherently going to bump into somebody that is radically different from you. Mm-hmm. You just are. I mean, this is the point of, but like you may get in your routine, you may be in a routine in your own community where you're not bumping up against people. Maybe this can inspire you to seek out people who don't think, look, believe, act like you do, and like have a conversation, go for a walk together. Like, that's a huge win on a project like this, right? Yeah. Is if people just step out of their front door and go seek something different.
Mm-hmm. What are we going to make? Just like Ryan said, video series. We're going to have just video journeys that kind of follow along. Starting with the Camino, we're going to start filming that in a month and a half. Can't believe it. Podcasts. On these journeys, I'm going to have short conversations with as many people as possible. We're going to bundle those up into podcast sessions that we'll release on this feed. And yeah, I think that you're right. A journal, something that allows us to write down and reflect what it is that these journeys are doing, not just for us, but for people around the world.
Well, when you take the journeys as a whole, to craft that larger narrative, I think it's going to take some time and space to again, Pete, zoom out.
Yep.
And what does that mean? And I think maybe, print's not dead. I mean, I think some sort of book resource, something is going to be necessary. That the immediacy of the podcast and the videos is one thing, but what does it all mean if we can take a step back and look at it and say, what are some takeaways? Where's that thread? That's where I think we really start to pull on that thread.
Yeah, you should think about our content as ripples on the water. So the podcasts are going to be just daily reflections on what happened those days.
Yeah.
And the videos are going to be what happened on this journey.
Yeah.
And the travel journal is going to be what happened with this project.
That's great. Yeah.
Really quickly to wrap it all up. What are we looking for going forward? We're looking to scale our vision, right? How can we raise funds? How can we expose people to this idea? How can we share it with as many people as possible so that we can get the support and the backing that we need?
Yeah.
Part of this is going to come out of the Camino journey. That's basically going to be like the pilot for the series. But if we can nail that, and if we can then get that out to other people, I think that what you'll see is that folks are going to understand what the project is, and you're going to find that folks are going to pitch in and support us on this.
Yeah.
So that's it. The 10-6-1, 10 journeys, 6 continents, 1 human story. There you go. Clip that. Share it with your friends.
Come on, people. This is a good, noble, worthwhile project.
Here's what I love, and this is what I love about the pod, Ryan, is like it all started with me saying, hey, do you want to do the Camino and maybe pod about it? And from that conversation to a year and a half later, we've arrived at this. I just think that like that journey in and of itself is part of the overall journey. Like it's really cool that we've been able to experience all these other people's stories on our way, watching a lot of movies on our way. Yeah. And that all helped to inform what this is. So that's it. PC Pilgrims is in the book. Next month, Ryan, we're going back to PCTV. We're going to be talking about the Sterling Harjo series, The Lowdown, starring Ethan Hawke.
Can't wait.
The Lowdown is what we're going to be talking next month. Ryan, thanks so much for being part of this project.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. I got to go cook dinner.
Let's do it. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Walk on line.